the Illinois Works IWRS updates. So again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know that you guys have a lot on your plate, and we're glad that you are able to join us today. Over the next hour, you're going to have a chance to really get to hear from a subject matter expert on our IWRS system and the recent updates, and go through a demonstration on those and get a chance to ask some questions. So again, really glad you're here. And if you didn't hear, this session is being recorded and will be made available for review in the Illinois Work Partner Guide website. The link we'll be putting into the chat here in a little bit, and you'll want to get out and pass that on if somebody isn't able to make it to the session today. It'd be great to share that as well. Again, my name is Jeff Doolittle, and again, I am one of the program coaches for Illinois Works. I'm also a training analyst, and I've been with Illinois Works for just going back to March of this year. Also today, we have our primary facilitator with us is David Garvey. And David, if you could come off of and turn on your camera and come off and just introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is David Garvey. I am a training and development specialist with SIU, Center for Workforce Development. I've been working on the Illinois Works project for a few years now.
All right. We're really glad to have you here with us, David, and looking forward to what you can inform us about the updates. So the today's session, we're going to cover a few different updates that David has planned. The participant page, the intake process, services tab, program completion, grantee details, and the cohort screens, and then some reports. And you'll have a chance to ask some questions as well. So that leads us to making sure you're familiar with WebEx. If you want to make sure everybody understands how to access mute and unmute in case you have a question, there is that button down at the bottom. Also, if you need to start and stop your video, that's located right next to it. You also have the ability to raise your hand, so feel free to use that feature and ask a question during the session. That's a great way to do that. You can also show engagement with us using some emojis. And then we'll be taking advantage of the chat feature quite heavily. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those into chat. And when there's pauses and reflection, we'll direct those to David so he can answer any questions that you may have specific to the content that's being covered today. Again, if you have questions after the workshop, so let's say we cover it and you get back and you're thinking, oh man, I'd like to get an answer to something that was covered today with David, you can email us at the ceo.illinoisworks@illinois.gov, and that link is posted into the chat at this point. Right now, if you would take a minute and drop your name, your organization, and your role into the chat feature. And if you have attended an IWRS session in the past, if you would just indicate it maybe with a star for each one of the ones you've been to, or you can put a number in there. So we'll see who we have with us today on the call. All right, Chantrell, thank you. Glad to have you here. The TAKE program, Jackie. From Skills USA, we got Roger from MFS. And Roger is like a five-star general. He's been to a lot of IWRS sessions, so that's great to have you here. Linda, we've got here from Southwestern Illinois College. Great. Shubra from Quad County, and Katrina from Quad Counties as well. We've got Lashonda. Hey, great to see you, Lashonda from YMCA. Sherry, sorry, YMCA as well, and great to have you here. Scott, Rock Island County, great to have you here. Looks like this could be one of your first sessions too. So then we got Isaiah with the Quad County Urban League. It's great. Xavier. We've got Pekin, Illinois here represented. Awesome. Susan, thanks for joining us. And Angela from EDDR. Great to have you here. So we're glad you guys are a part of today's session and hope to get your questions answered and again, engage with IWRS. At this point, I'm actually going to be turning it over to David Garvey, our primary facilitator, and he's going to take it from here and navigate around IWRS and show you some things and hopefully answer your questions.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. We begin on this the Illinois Works reporting system page, where of course you can add and search for participants. These first few changes, I'm sure you may have noticed, but we started off with when you first arrive here, we don't have the participant list loading. And the reason for this is, as over time, the more participants that you add, the more data in the system, it just kind of slows things down. So what, we thought, the update we made was we just don't load anybody until a, search is applied. And speaking of that, one of the next update is that we've added a cohort to the search. So if you have previous cohorts, participants you need to take a look at, you can use the filters here, and you can select as many as you desire. Just do a quick search here. And the other thing was Illinois WorkNet ID. And this is helpful because, especially if there's a duplicate participant in the system, or if that ID is provided during a help request ticket, we can track that number down, track that participant down in the system and see what we need to do to correct or update something for that participant. The next update is we got a few that involve the exports. Let me go ahead and run an export here. Let's see, I need completion date. Okay, so we added completion date as a selectable box here. So if your participants complete the program and you need to pull this export report, you can check this box and the completion date will appear in the download. And we also had an update to the county list here. So what previously we did update it so that it, at a certain date, moving forward, I forget which date exactly, that the county would populate, but we needed to go back and update it for the participants in the past. And so we've gone back and updated that in the report so that the counties are now showing here. Here we go. Checklist, breaking it down. So yep, we can see the county for our participants here. And it looks like of this list here, there's only a handful that I have marked as complete, but we do have their completion date in the export as well. And another thing that can't really show, but just to know, the export will pull information for a few fields from the application rather than the information tied to the account. For example, if the participant was added and it synced up to a existing WorkNet account, it may have a different email address being used, phone number and some other information. So since the application is more it's fresher than when the account was originally created, we're pulling the info from the application so that the export has the most recent information there. Okay, and those are the first batch of updates. So the next area we'll take a look at is actually this page, the overview page. We have this set up now so that if you keep in mind 1210 for this timestamp here. So we have it set up so that when you arrive at the participants page, that the information will refresh right away. before we had a sync that was running overnight. So if you made changes in the system, for enrollment or any of these other items here, services, attendance, post-assessment flags. If you made any changes, in order to see those changes, you'd have to come back to this page, click the refresh status button, or wait until the next day to see the changes here. So what, instead of that overnight sync, what we did was when you just come to this participants, overview page, that, it'll automatically refresh. So for example, let me find a participant here. Oh, here we go. So now I haven't looked at, let's see, Albert Jackson in a while. So when we go here, we'll see on the overview page that we should have today's date. Yep, in 12/12. So that way you just have the latest whenever you come to the page. All right, our next area is in the intake tab here. Okay, so we'll start off by looking at the career assessment. We did make some updates to that. So if we open this up here, and they're at the bottom here. So after our questions for assessment type, up-to-date resume, experience in job interviews, we'll be ready to transition to DOL registered apprenticeship program after completing the Illinois Works program. We got our primary and secondary goals. But we've added 5 drop downs here where you can add a more specific career that they're interested in. So if it's more than one, they can select up to 5. Or if they're I don't have 5, I only have 4, you can select not applicable as an option as well. And so we've added that ranking and prioritization to the career assessment here. And something else we did, super admin account here. Another update we did to the intake page is that we removed the ability to remove enrollment statuses and other uploaded documents for proof of high school. We just want to be able to retain that information. And if you do have an enrollment status that should be deleted, maybe it was just the wrong date, the wrong cohort, or if you uploaded a document that maybe it was for another participant, you can just send a help request and we can get that removed and taken care of. But yeah, just wanted to note that and I have received a few help requests from that. So, but yeah, just an FYI, if there is information to be removed, let me know, and we can confirm with the grant managers that we can in fact move forward with removing that. Actually, I want to go back to well, no, we'll go to this one first. Another thing that happened somewhat recently, a bug that came up was with the wraparound support services. That's some a little more recent here. Is there was an issue where it wasn't really, they weren't saving correctly in the system. You fill it out and then let's see if we have a sports assessment here. Looks like we do. Okay, so yeah, so you fill out your responses to these questions and you click saved, and there was this window that would appear that didn't really show that confirm that this was updated. So if you went back and click save it again, so we resolved that issue. So when you complete the wraparound support assessment and save it, that it saves. And kind of tied to that, there was also a duplication of services. that were being added to the training services tab. And I know a few grantees have reached out about removing some of those duplicates. But if you do have duplicate wraparound services assessment, that's another case where you can submit a help request and we can get that removed and taken care of. And I actually want to go back to the overview page. This is just kind of a quick note here. We had an issue where this flag for earned credential would remain yellow, even if a credential was added to the training services tab. Maybe we fixed that. So, when a credential is added, it now shows as green once the overview page is refreshed and updated. All right, our next area will be the training and services tab here. Okay, let's go to this tab here. Okay, so service to pick here. So let's do this one. So for the services, regardless of whether it's a training, wraparound, student support, or transition service, we updated some of the logic for when you're saving this. When you would make an update, there's the case note prompt. So we've removed that for a few of these statuses because they kind of speak for themselves. Started/open no longer requires a case note, nor does successful completion. But we do have that case note prompt for these last two, this unsuccessful completion and evaluated not required. So we do have that now. Because I thought it was a good idea to remove unnecessary case notes, especially if they speak for themselves. Let's see here. Another update, on this page here, that we've added a case note table to the service, so that when there are case notes left here that are directly tied to the service, they'll appear in this table here, so we can get a summary view of the case notes. Another update that we have here was for the total attendance hours. Before, we just had round numbers for the attendance hours, but now, and then I think we went to maybe the half, 4.5 or whatever. But now it allows decimal points. So if you need to, if you need to break it down by the quarter hour or 3.25. We've allowed that here. And I know, and there's some other reports, on the cohort screen and the services report where you can update the statuses and attendance. We've added that as well. So it's kind of system-wide, the change for allowing a decimal point. Go back here to the add activity services. We also allow, or we're now having training services pulling through this tab here. Got a lot of services on test, but before the training services, they weren't. If they were maybe outside of the cohort, curriculum, other training services. Bottom line is that your training services, if you need to add it for whatever reason, you can add them to the career plan through this button in this window here. Another update we have was just kind of standardizing some of the templates for the non-training services. So that would be the wraparound, the student support, and the transition services. just having these three tabs here. So that's the status default one, which is of course where you change the dates and the status. Service provider, you can enter that service provider information here. And then the dollar value service. So if there's any costs, that will, you can add those here. But so yeah, for non-training services, this is kind of the default. We just wanted to simplify things and not have, tabs we didn't need for our services. And another one was we had an issue with adding a cost where you could, especially on the program stipend service, but if you added the cost information here, it wasn't the cost info itself, the actual numbers, they weren't pulling through to the table here. And they're saved when you click to edit them. The numbers were showing here, but for some reason they just weren't pulling through the table, and that was an issue that we resolved as well. Okay, let's see. Next, we have some updates to the program completion tab. So let me here. We had an issue with, when you were adding a case note, some open services. So probably, let me go to a different participant here. We had an issue with the case note where if it was left on the program completion tab, actually, let me just close out some of these windows. Okay, so let's say transition, enter some of this info here. Where when you're adding a case note, when you're updating the program completion status, when you're adding a case note, there's an issue with it not, I think initially it just wasn't saving, but in the case notes tab here, there were a couple fields that weren't pulling through correctly. Task was one of them, and I think maybe subject was another, but that's an issue that we resolved. So if you're leaving a case note on the program completion tab, all those fields are pulling through to this kind of summary case note area here. All right, there's one other update for the program completion tab. Let's see the best way to show this. Yeah, we should be able to do this. So super admins, basically me and Dan, Monica, and Norman. We have this verification status here, as they're just kind of going through and checking the data, verifying that it's correct, and just kind of where the participants stand with all these different statuses here. There has been an update where if completion final verification is selected, that locks things down for the participant's record, and that's just to make sure that there's no additional data changes, or maybe if something had to go back and be corrected, they just want to make sure that the information that the bottom line is basically to make sure that the information in the system is correct and verified. And I know some grantees have reached out for a couple instances where they needed to go back and correct some information. And so if that is the case, and you go back to the participant and you come into the career plan, you're like, well, why can't I edit these services? Why can't I make these changes? And it's because we have locked that down. So you can see, the cursor is that kind of, prohibited sign there. So, but if you do need to, if that does happen, you do need to make some changes. That's another case where, you can just submit a help request and then, we're happy to unlock that and, allow you to make those changes. Let's see. And then next area of updates will be in the grantee details section, specifically the cohort area. So I'm gonna go down here, cohort here. So the changes that we made here, actually it looks like these are for super admins only. But we can still go over them. But as a super admin, when we were setting up the curriculum for the different cohorts, the super admins have the ability to change the order of the services and how they appear on that training services tab. If we needed to remove one, we can do that here and add a training service that may not be in here. So yeah, I guess those changes are primarily for super admins, but we did make some changes to the section here. Let's see, got just a few more updates to go over. Let's see, work plan report page. So if we first enter the system and click on this tab for work plan and report, we'll see some of the updates we made were we've added info bubbles, just kind of explaining what these different items are, what they mean. And we changed, let's see, we added the construction alternative, transition, and the secondary outcome transition as well. So just wanted to highlight those that we've updated that for the work plan report. Let's see, we've added. Okay, got to go to the reports tab. So in the reports tab, this icon over here, there were a couple changes to some reports. Let's see. The first one was, I believe it was this tab or this report. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, the attendance post-assessment scores. We just added a loading icon here. I know, especially if you had a lot of participants, if you come here and click filter, before it just looked like nothing was happening. So we wanted to, add that feature into the system so you can see that, it is working to, pull that information back. This is the primary organization I use in tests, so it's got a lot of participants, fake participants in here. So I think this UAT test environment is slow to begin with, but let's see. Okay, in the meantime, the other report to another, or an update to another report here, the student support utilization report. Let's see here. That is this report here. Open this up here, but we've updated the report so that it only includes Um, Go to production real quick. It's like I have an issue with that test account here. There we go. Okay. So we've updated this report to, before it was pulling back, every single service, but we've updated it to pull back just the, um, wraparound services and the programmed stipends. So just wanted to make a quick note of that. And then that covers all of the updates, but I do want to note too, because I know I've had a couple grantees reach out about it. The report where the services report where you could, update that kind of, bird's eye view of all the participants and the train that has the columns with the, training, with the training services, the, post assessment scores, and or post assessment information, and you enter the required hours, so you could, just kind of do it pretty quickly. We have hidden that temporarily. We're currently working on updates that are greatly going to simplify it. It just kind of seeing that, for other programs, um, there were just features, that they use that, are not as applicable to Illinois Works. So what we're doing is, just kind of simplifying the version for Illinois Works. And we'll provide an update once that's, back up and running again. But just wanted to note that it's hidden. I'm anticipating that we should have that by the end of the week. But just need to confirm and test and make sure that the updates are working properly. But once they are, we'll send a notice out to all the grantees that report's back. See, and with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions. Not sure if there's been any in the chat here.
I haven't seen any questions in the chat, David. But if you would at this time, everyone just drop those in if you have any questions for David about the content and updates.
Hey Jeff, hi everybody. This is LaShonda from the YMCA.
Oh,
I
Sean.
have a question. David, this may be applicable to you or pretty much the state of Illinois team. For the report that you just mentioned regarding the total hours and um, the total hours and required hours is still under construction. I just kind of wanted to know what tips and strategies in the interim do you guys suggest, or maybe hear from the other agencies what is being used to track those hours? Because currently, right now, of course, we're doing it manually, which can take up a lot of time to calculate those hours. But I wanted to hear some, if you have any tips, suggestions, or strategies, or hear from some of the other agencies in regards to what they're doing to monitor those hours.
Yeah, as far as actually entering them, yeah, kind of in the interim, I know it is a little, tedious to do it individually, but yeah, going directly to that, the training service itself and entering in that the total attendance hours there is, at least for the time being, how that information can be entered. But yeah, if there's other anyone else on the call who has any tips or strategies, please feel free to share those.
All right. Well, LaShonda, I'm not hearing any, so I don't think anybody has any creative workarounds at this point for getting that into the system.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
I was just curious in
exactly.
regards to what other people were doing as well, because of course a spreadsheet to calculate the minimum requirement of the 80% of the modules, but not to exceed the 100% is something that, you know, we're manually doing all of that, but to create a formula on the spreadsheet will definitely help us um, moving forward to not spend so much time doing that. And then, of course, with the system, Illinois Works being able to track that information will be helpful as well. But in the meantime, to ensure that we're meeting all of the all the requirements and being in compliant, and the students are on track to successfully graduate. I was just curious to see what were some things that other people were doing in the meantime. So possibly everybody is just doing it manually, of course.
Mhm. Right.
I
Thank
do
you,
want to
Dave.
note, yeah,
Thanks,
of
Jeff.
course. I do want to note, I can't really, show it because it's still kind of, under construction, but we do have a feature in that report, once it is back, where you can upload that spreadsheet. So,
Mm.
so yeah, if the spreadsheet is updated, then, once we have the report back, up and running, then, yeah, the upload should, apply all those, changes, hours, assessment information, um, and so forth, kind of all at once.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, LaShonda. Good question. All right. Well, none others have come into chat. If you do have a question, you can come off mute if you'd like to and ask that. If not, we're going to move ahead with our evaluation. So I'm going to actually go ahead and share my screen. All right. All right. Well, I am not seeing any others come into the chat at this point. So, David, thank you again for making time to join us and walk through those. I saw we got some love those updates. So always good to see the progress with the system. At this point, everyone, we're going to do as we always do. We want to hear from you, want to get your feedback. So I've got a Menti poll set up. Would like to get as many of you as possible to give us some feedback on these Toolbox Tuesdays. So I've just dropped into the chat the access the site. If you go to menti.com and enter the code 881053331, and I'm going to have a poll up and we'll collect your feedback. Again, that's been added to chat. I'll give you a second to get out there to menti.com. And would love to get your feedback on how we can continue to improve these Toolbox Tuesdays and maximize the value that you get from these sessions. So I've got just a few questions for you. Right. I see we got one person out there, it looks like at this point. Give you just a minute. Menti.com 88105331. About 20 people here, I think, on the call. So let me go ahead and advance to the first question. If you would, let us know. Please share your views on this training by rating the following statements from 1 to 10. To what extent did it meet your expectations today? How likely are you to attend a similar event in the future? And how likely are you to recommend this training to others? If you would, go out to menti.com. We need to get as many of you as possible into the system and giving us some ratings. Thank you, those that are joining. Thank you. Looks good feedback here. Great. Yeah, I think these Toolbox Tuesdays are a really great idea to dig in and get real practical here applications. Good. All right. Thank you for the feedback. Those that are in, if you haven't joined, please continue to join as we progress through the evaluation here. The next question I have for you is the course was relevant to what I wanted to learn about this subject matter. The course was relevant to what I wanted to learn about this subject matter. How did we do as far as hitting the box on IWRS? I think that's a great topic. I know with the grantees I support, IWRS is always a topic of discussion and getting up to speed, learning about it, and tips and tricks, tools. So appreciate that. All right, those responses are coming in. So it looks like strongly agree. Awesome. That's great. And there's somewhat disagree. So some opportunities. Want to hear what it is later. We got a question coming up where you can give us that. Next is I plan to use what I learned. Does this hit the mark? Are you going to use some of these tools, tips, new updates that David covered with us? And these updates going to apply to you? Right. So we got some mix here, some strongly agree, neither disagree, agree or disagree, and somewhat agree. Awesome. Thank you for your feedback. Next question, what improvements might you recommend? So we'd love to hear if you, anybody from all of you can always improve, right? So what would you recommend we do to improve these Toolbox Tuesdays in this session? And if you don't have any specific recommendation, would ask you just enter NA. Thank you for that person that did that. Okay, so I see the comment, a follow-up meeting to discuss any issues, positives after we've been able to try them. Yep, so continuing that. And I know the technical assistance options as well for those that can dig into IWRS, so it's good. Toolbox tying to manual to IWRS as the manual doesn't spell out IWRS and specific requirements. So, okay, so an idea of connecting the manual and the IWRS. Yep, and I know we have some of those webinars from when I first started back in March in the our recordings that might be a resource as well. It'd be helpful to select a specific area that needs to be addressed in the workshop area for hands-on learners. Yeah, definitely. Good. Anybody else? What would you recommend? All right, some NAs coming in. Hands-on training. Yep. Okay. Thank you. And then next question, what did you find effective? If we make changes, what would you recommend we keep? Again, you can use an NA if you don't have a specific recommendation. If you do find something that you're like, boy, you really want to make sure you keep that, please let us know. Yeah, I think it's great having David join us and covering that. That's really good. All right, seeing everything. So that's great. Thanks, David. And some NAs. And then here, is there anything else about this course you think we should know? Just anything else you'd want to add? Would love to get it here. If you're not comfortable putting it here as well, feel free to send it to your grant manager, to to the CEO email that we dropped into chat earlier. Would love to hear from you again on this course. Give you just a minute here, if you would respond to this last question. Anything else? NAs, got an NA. All right. All right. Well, it's going to stay open. Again, thank you for those that responded. Thank you for joining us, time out of your day, and being a part of these Toolbox Tuesdays, where we hope to give you the information you need so you can be successful with IWRS. And David, thanks again for your time. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yep.
You too. Thank you.
Uh-huh.